Hi, and welcome back to Smart String Teacher, and welcome back to the series on mistakes not to make as a string teacher. My name is Grace Law, and I love sharing what I know about teaching strings with you so that I can help you make your life easier and help you have your students be more successful, of course. So, what's the topic for today? How not to seat string players. It is mostly aimed at non-string players who are teaching strings, and I love you guys. Or maybe you're a string player, you haven't played in an orchestra before. Let's learn today how to properly seat students in a string orchestra. So, what I often see is non-string players trying to seat string students in perfect semicircle rows. So row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. And they're trying to fit them in to these perfect semicircles. And maybe they'll end up with 6 desks in the front for some reason or whatever. I see that a lot. Guess what, guys? You cannot think of seating strings like band. And you cannot think in semicircles. It will drive you nuts. So how do you seat strings? Well, let me show you via the lesson that I give all my beginners at the beginning of the year. So this is my string orchestra seating plan lesson. And it shows clearly to the students what each section should look like, how to count the desks, and how to figure out where you're sitting. So this is a handout that you can download for free from my website, smartstringteacher.com. Feel free to sign up and get a copy. And let's just get right to the nitty-gritty here. The foundation for your string orchestra seating is the first 4 desks in the front, and there should only be 4. Why should there only be 4? Because they are the leaders of each section. So they need to be at the front and they need to be seen. If you put more, then you get confusion because you don't know who to watch. So 1 desk at the front. So those are the first ones I set up in front of the conductor stand. Once I've set that up, then I start making rows, but not semicircles, but rows backwards. So I'm not sure if you have outside and inside in band, but outside means the desks or the seats that are closest to the audience, and inside means the seats or the desks that are further from the audience. So what you're going to do is, once you set up the first desk for the first violins, you're going to set up a straight row on the outside of the section as far back as room allows in your space. So in this example, it goes back 4 desks. And in my actual classroom, it only goes back 3 desks. But on our stage, it actually fits more. I'm going to do the same thing in the second violin section. I'm going to make 1 straight row on the outside of the section, going back as far as I can in the space, or as far as I need, in case I have a smaller group. If I only have a small group, then I might stop at 3. And then on the opposite side, in the cello section, I'll start with a straight row again on the outside of the section, as far back as I can, which in this case is 4. And then same thing with the viola. I'll start with a straight row on the outside of the section, and this one only goes as far back as 3 desks. So what do you do after the first row of desks? Then you stagger the next desk. Okay, so the next desk should not start back at the front. It should start 1 desk behind, or approximately somewhere there, depending on your space, because you're going to have to fit in your students so that they have enough room to play. So it might not be exactly next to desk 2 here. Okay, that's why you can't think in semicircles. So the next row starts here at 5, and then again I go straight back. Desk 6 is here, desk 7 is here. If I need more desks, I'm going to again stagger the next row and start here with 8 and then 9 there. So you're going to do the same for each section. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the second violins. We're going to stagger 5. We've got 6 and 7, stagger 8, and then 9. And then we got the cellos, 1, 2, 3, 4, stagger 5, 6, 7, stagger 8, and we're ending there. And if we look at the viola section, we've got only 1, 2, 3. So that means desk 4 is staggered behind the front desk. And then 5, and then again, we stagger desk 6. And then double bass are usually in one row straight across, starting with the outside desk here, 1, 2, 3, 4, or however many you need. So this is a traditional setup. I know there's also other different setups that people like to use, like putting second violins here and the cellos in the middle somewhere. The same principle applies. So you might look at this and think, okay, now I got to squeeze in all these names in this seating plan. That's going to be a pain in the butt. But no, you're not going to do that, okay? So first of all, you're going to teach your students how to do this, how to set up the orchestra, as well as how to count desks. And then you're just going to give them a simple list. And let me show you what that looks like. Here's what a typical seating plan might look like. It's just a list with the desk numbers and the outside player listed first and the inside player listed second. And so your students would look at this, or your orchestra members would look at this, know what desk number they are sitting at, whether they're inside or outside, and go count the desks and find their seat. So it's very, very simple. I've also created my own seating plan that's more visual, that makes it a lot easier for me to see who's where. And it looks like this. And again, you can download this on my website as well. I'll put a link in the description. So what I've done here is, instead of having 1, 2, 3 like that, I'm listing it backwards because that's how I see them in the classroom. I've got the outside person on the left here for first and second violins, but I put the outside player on the right for the cello, bass, and violas, so that I can visually see who's sitting where. I've also made it so that it'll count the number of players in each section too, because I'm always scrambling to figure that out. So if you'd like to use that, feel free to download that on the website. One more thing that I see some teachers doing is seating strings in straight rows with a single stand in front of them. You don't want to be doing that either, the straight rows or the single stand, okay? There should always be 2 players per stand. You should always be sharing stands. You want to get your students used to sharing a stand and sharing their music. And there's some etiquette behind that as well, which I can cover at some other time. So why can't each player have their own stand like in band? Well, often in band music, each instrument is not playing all the way through the music. There's lots of rests. But in string music, the page is black. We're lucky if we have any rests. So why is that a problem? Well, that means if there's a page turn, everybody has to stop and turn the page, and you'd have a gap in music. So we need 2 people per stand. Number 1, to save room, because string players take up a lot of room. But number 2, so that the inside player becomes the page turner. So that's the responsibility of the inside player, okay? The outside player keeps playing, the inside player turns the page when it comes time to turn the page. And often the music will be written in a way that the page turn is either during a rest, which is usually very short, or some simple passage that makes it easy to turn the page. So get your students used to sharing stands and sharing music and turning pages. Also, when you're seating 2 players to a stand, you want to make sure their chairs are angled so that they are pointing in at the stand. That way they're at an angle to each other so that they don't hit each other with their bows. Okay, if they're sitting straight on, they're going to hit each other. You need to angle their chairs so that they're both pointing 90 degrees into the music stand. Okay, so that's one of the quirks of string playing. I hope that helped you and helps make your life easier when it comes to planning where everyone's going to sit. Stop making straight lines, stop making semicircles. Think in pies, so that when you look out at the first violins, you can see this pie. That's all first violins. And when you look out at the violas, you can see the pie. That's all violas, okay? They're not semicircles, they are pies. This was a fun video to make. There's one more tip left, so make sure you subscribe so you don't make this next mistake.